right, everybody. Welcome back. Good Hustle, episode 11. John Henry.
Zach Williamson.
Great day today.
It is. It's an awesome day. I'm so excited for this episode.
Yeah, we are joined today by Chris Heisey, who I got to meet probably 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, I think so.
Actually at a rehab house that I ended up selling on Hoagstown Road. But cool story. Chris is a former Major League Baseball player, played for the Cincinnati Reds, Washington Nationals, Los Angeles Dodgers.
Don't listen to John. He's a hater.
No opinions over here.
That's all right. You're allowed to have a
Yep. And a couple other teams, obviously. You had actually a pretty good career. And the cool thing is you're local, from Mount Joy.
Yep.
And played college baseball at Messiah, which is really awesome.
Yeah.
It was Messiah College when you went there, though, right?
Yeah, it's recently switched to university.
Yeah, Messiah University now. So shout out to all the Messiah people out there.
Love Messiah.
I have a intro question for you. Okay,
Sure.
so growing up, right? You always want to be under the bright lights, right? The bright lights. And, I grew up, I was in Little League, and I told you before we got on here, like, I had a golfer swing, right? It was horrible. I swung under the ball every single time.
Sure.
And if I hit it, it would go really high, be a pop out, or it'd be over the fence or something. But I hit like 100 as a kid. I was horrible. I was absolutely terrible. And then I found out later I'm not even good at golf either.
That's all right.
But yeah, growing up under the bright lights, you dream of like, man, I would love to be a Philly someday, like Chase Utley or Jimmy Rollins or Bobby Abreu or someone like that. Or I'd love to be a Nationals player someday, like Ryan Zimmerman or someone like that, right? But you actually got to live that dream. Like what does that actually feel like to know? Like you went from that kid, like all of us did in Little League, to being one of the guys on the field.
Sure. Well, fortunately, I got to do it long enough where it became like normal, and I didn't think of it like that. But when I first made my debut in Cincinnati, actually my first game with the Major League team was in St. Louis, and like walking out on that field for batting practice, knowing that you're on the actual Major League team. And then you think back to when you're 8, 10, 12 years old, and I loved baseball. I loved watching Sunday night baseball. I couldn't wait to get in front of the TV and watch and dream, like you said, of being there someday, and then you're actually there. It was really surreal, but it was also very nerve-wracking.
I'm sure.
I mean, there's so many eyes on you.
You know what I mean? And I wasn't touted as this big-name superstar. I kind of took the road less traveled. Obviously went to Messiah.
Yeah.
D3, never had a major league player or even a professional player when I went there come out of that school. So my road there was a little different. So it was almost like I was just grateful to be there instead of expecting to be there. It was like, pinch yourself. I can't believe I'm actually standing in front of 30,000 people under the lights, like you said, on TV, playing on ESPN, those kind of things. It was pretty wild.
I can't even imagine what that would feel like.
And you mentioned Jimmy Rollins and Chase Utley. So growing up a Phillies fan, and in 2008 they won the World Series.
Yes, my dad cried hard.
Well, I think back to 2003 when they lost the World Series. I was 8 years old. I cried like a baby when Joe Carter hit the home run off of Mitch Williams to win the World Series. But I got to play with Jimmy and Chase in L.A. in 2015. So talk about like
that's amazing.
Yeah, I was like, guys, I don't know if you know this, but I was a huge fan of you when I was.
I was gonna say I wouldn't even be able to speak. I really would.
Ended up, they were great teammates and down to earth guys.
That's so cool.
So
those are two. I'm not a Philly guy at all, but those are two of my favorite Phillies players.
Oh, for sure.
And Mike Schmidt.
Yeah,
Jimmy Rollins was my favorite player.
And then Jason Worth, I got to play with him.
Yeah.
Oh, Jason Worth was a cool
2
guy.
years with the Nationals.
In the Nats, right. Yeah.
He was part of those teams back then, too. So, it was pretty cool. Kind of, again, pinch yourself. Like, I can't believe I'm teammates with these guys. Not that long ago, I never played a second of pro ball, and now I'm, on their team, giving them high fives
in the
after
same
I hit
uniform.
a home run. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy.
That's so wild.
So your first game, what year was that?
2010.
Okay, and it was in Busch Stadium?
So, funny story, and I can talk, so if you want to get a bunch
no,
of
you're okay.
You're okay. But, so I was playing for AAA Louisville Bats. We were playing the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Yankees in AAA, and we had a day game, and then the following day we had a night game. So I actually came back to Mount Joy to spend time with my family, and then I was going to head back up the next day. Well, I get a phone call that evening from my AAA manager saying, hey, just so you know, you're going to the majors. We need you back here. You got to get on a flight at 6 a.m. to go to St. Louis because the Reds are flying into St. Louis tonight. And so I get back to Scranton. I can't get a hold of anybody. All my baseball gear is in the locker room. So long story short, I flew. I had none of my own stuff. I don't have my glove. I don't have my cleats. I don't have anything. So 3-game series. I didn't get into any of the games, but I'm wearing Scott Rowland's cleats because he's the only one with size 14.
That's crazy.
I forget whose glove I borrowed, but I didn't end up getting into the game. But I made my debut when we got back to Cincinnati against the Mets 3 days later. After all up.
That's amazing. But to be on Busch, I mean, because I'm a little bit older. Not much older, but 1998, 99, the year that was Sammy and McGuire was one. As a kid, it was one of the coolest things in the world to me.
It's unbelievable, yeah.
And just remembering September 9th, the 62 went over the wall at 341 feet. It was the shortest home run he hit all year.
Yep. That was just a line drive.
They didn't even, you barely even saw it go to a fence, but you were on the same field playing.
Yep.
Which is really cool. And then the other thing that I thought was really cool and I wanted to bring up, you played for the Reds, okay? Uh-huh. And from what people talk about, second greatest swing in Reds history, which so but you played in the same uniform as guys as Johnny Bench, Frank Robinson, Pete Rose, Joe Morgan, Barry Larkin, Joey Votto, and of course Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah.
You got to wear the same logo. Right. Same uniform as those guys.
Right. Again,
humbling.
And even cooler, I personally have got to know most of the guys you just said on that list because I got to play in that same uniform.
Wow.
That's so cool.
Just this winter, my son and I me, my wife and son were out for Reds Fest. They have me back it's like a fan fest in the middle of winter. And Pete Rose was in town. Maybe this was the summer. Regardless, my son got to sit and talk to Pete Rose for 10 minutes.
Oh my gosh!
Just how cool, the guy has the most hits ever in MLB history. He's just sitting there having a conversation because I got to play. For the Reds.
Well, because of the work you did to get there.
Well, sure, but that opportunity led to so many, meeting so many cool people, interesting people. Some of these guys are great people. Some of them are very selfish and
I'm sure
let the fame go to their head. But regardless, great opportunities that my son now, 3 boys get to kind of share in, which is awesome too.
Yeah, it's really neat. So we'll get back to your kids too, but what were you like as a kid? Siblings? What was it like growing up in Mount Joy?
I was the oldest of 4. Loved sports my whole childhood. My parents weren't really big sports people. I had my mom's youngest brother who I think was 15 years older than me. So he was like the young, cool uncle as I was growing up. He was in his 20s when I was little, and he loved sports. He loved baseball. He loved softball. And so I think that is what got me into sports. Some of my cousins were into them too. But yeah, I didn't come from a big sports family.
Really?
There was no expectations to even play sports, really. I mean, my dad liked sports, but he grew up on a farm type family, and they didn't prioritize sports. And so, but no, childhood was great. Oldest of 4. I have a handicapped sister that I think growing up with her kind of shaped who I am too, because I've got to watch how people can treat somebody that's different and who might not act or look the same as somebody normal. And so it gave me such a heart for people growing up with her and being around some of the kids on her bus and get to go to her school from time to time and be around some of the handicapped people that, if they could have chose, they would be normal like you and I, but they're not. And doesn't mean they're any less special or important. And so getting to love people like that. I got some good stories. Just like my child, I actually just told my mom the other day how I look back at my childhood, because she was the middle of 7 kids. So she has some stuff that went on in her childhood that maybe didn't make her feel as loved or important as but I said, Mom, I had none of those same things. I feel so loved growing up and so fortunate to have 2 parents that cared the world about me and spent time with me and helped me realize my dreams and passions. My dad I'd drag him down to the ball field. He'd spend hours just pitching to me,
That's so
he didn't have to do that, but he loved me. So then that helped nurture me and help my baseball career flourish. And then obviously when you're good at something, I was good as a kid. God gave me some natural ability, and then because I was good, people said I was good. It made me want to do it even more, and that's kind of how my baseball career started. But yeah, great childhood. My brother, my youngest brother, he's 8 years younger than me. He's living with me currently, working at our facility, the Heisey sports training that we started.
Which we're going to get into that. I can't wait to talk about that.
So no, great upbringing and childhood. Loved, great memories growing up.
So you used the word handicapped, and we actually just did our last episode was with Kate Gillis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kate Gillis owns Norse Coffee Shop.
Okay.
So her daughter has Down syndrome, and she employs people with Down syndrome as well, and that are handicapped. And what we talked about, which is really important, is how that handicap is not a bad word.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
Just because you're handicapped doesn't mean it's a bad thing. And I think just the fact that you brought that up and how it made you probably a lot more, caring of a person as a child growing up. Sure. I think that's an awesome thing to have on your side.
Yes.
Because it's going to make you a better parent. It's going to make you a better human.
Right.
And that's the thing with Kate, like we talked about last week, was just how, we want that word to be more normalized and not as a bad word.
Well, right. I think we all have a handicap, right? I mean, whether it's a physical handicap or some of a character flaw we have, maybe whatever that is. You know what I mean? We all have something that we wouldn't say is a good quality. You know what I mean? And just because you're handicapped, I mean, there's people that have been born with no legs that are changing the world. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't stop you from being a good person. And we're all created in the image of God. I firmly believe that. And
amen.
Like, God loves every one of us. So we're all special.
And I think another really special thing you just said was that you communicated to your parents, like, hey, like, you did great things for me.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really, really important, because I think, one, you're recognizing it. And I always try to go out of my way too to tell my parents. I'm like, we didn't have a lot of money growing up, and I always tell them, like, you guys gave me the greatest thing you could, which was two loving, amazing parents.
Right.
And in a household that stays together.
And then how many kids don't get that?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so we're all searching for love. Like, that's how we're designed. So yeah, that's now my passion is not just my own kids, but all the kids I get to coach. Yeah. Like I tend to gravitate towards the ones that I know their home life isn't great, just because I know they're not getting loved. You know what I mean? It's not that I don't. If I know a kid has great parents, I still obviously care for him, but like I'm not as worried about him. Yeah. And that need to feel nurtured and encouraged, and it's told they're awesome and they matter.
Yeah. And I coached for 13 years, and I can tell you the kids that struggle the most, like whether it's physically or emotionally, they're the ones that I would focus on and give the most praise to.
Sure.
Like always. Like literally, we had a kid on our team this year who finally scored a basket. Okay. And it was the second to last game.
Right.
The second he scored, he ran over to the sideline, hugged his mom, and I ran across the court, middle of the game. Don't care the clock's running. Fastball.
Matter.
Picked him up, gave him a hug.
Love it.
And the kid lived on cloud 9 for an entire week, and I just saw him on Saturday, and he's still smiling.
No doubt.
That's awesome. All it's about. If that's the only thing that happened that was on a positive note this year, which there was more, it made it work.
Of course.
Right. So, Chris, when did you start to really take baseball seriously?
Well,
or get really into it?
That's a loaded question, I guess, because like I just loved baseball, but as far as looking to playing professional ball, even up to the point when I went to Messiah College, like going to the D3 ball. So I just loved it and wanted to get better.
Yeah.
But like from the time I was 8 years old, I just wanted to be good at baseball.
Yeah.
Okay. So you would just say, look, I was always passionate about it. So I did it. Yeah.
Baseball and basketball, like I'd flip real quick when baseball was over. I'm like, all right, now it's time. I'd go out and shoot hoops all night
nice.
long. But just love sports and realize that if you put a lot of work into them, you'll get better.
Yeah.
That's what my 10-year-old and I are working on right now.
That's awesome.
I want to be better. Okay, well, I know hard work is kind of boring and not necessarily fun.
Yeah.
But you got to put it in if you want to be better on the court when the game comes. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I always wanted to be good, and so I always trained. But then in college, I think I had two guys that were 2 years older than me, both got to play pro ball. They were the first two ever to play pro ball.
Out of Messiah.
The year before I got drafted. Yeah, out of Messiah.
Okay.
And so they were my teammates. I started to see scouts at some of the games, and then went to a couple tryouts. And then my junior year, when scouts started coming to watch me play, that's when like, oh, hey, I might have a chance to play pro ball. You know
that's
what I mean?
Pretty cool.
And then I kicked my training into higher gear because I'm like, oh crap! If I'm going to have a chance, I don't want to go embarrass myself. You know, so I got to get ready.
Can I ask you why you selected Messiah of all places?
Yeah, that's a great question. One, I had a good high school career, but I wasn't this big name like winning awards, and so there was no D1 scholarship offers. Like I would have loved to go to North Carolina and play or basketball, but that wasn't an option. And then it was a Christian school, and because I love baseball and basketball, I had talked to both the coaches, and they were both on board with me doing it. So because it was Christian school, it was close enough to home, but far enough. It was like 45 minutes away. That it wasn't just like my mom's going to pop in all the time, to see me.
Yeah.
Those factors are why I ended up there.
So you played basketball there too?
No, I was going to.
Okay.
I was planning to, and then after my fall semester, I was like, I better focus on one and try not to fail out of here because
it's hard.
Yeah, I got my first couple syllabi when I
I don't know what it is either.
when I got to Messiah, and I'm like, man, this is going to be hard. I got to make sure I take care of my studies too. I don't want to not get to play any sports because my grades aren't good enough.
And that happens to a lot of college athletes where they get in, they go to college, they're playing college sports for 2-3 years or 1 year, and they decide, you know what, I'm going to pump the brakes and focus on my education. Sure. And it's not because they don't want to play the sports, but ultimately, I mean, maybe they're not going to go pro in that. That's not going to be what's going to feed their families in the future.
Right.
And they have to focus on something different. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Of course not.
Nothing. So when it happens, and it's okay.
That's right.
I couldn't make that decision at that age. I was a mess. There was no way I was making a decision that big that you made just to say, hey, listen, I'm going to focus on one, get my grades up, and do the right thing. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it worked out. I had a great time in college, and I got some very, very good friends from my college baseball team. And
awesome. So while we're on the topic of Messiah, okay, so I just wrote some of this down just for fun, the stats and all that stuff, right? So you played 3 years as an outfielder at Messiah.
Yep.
And these are some of the insane things that you did, okay?
They're not that insane.
To me, they're insane. Okay. I couldn't hit this much in T-ball or something. Okay. So highest career batting average of 405, which you're not supposed to have a 4 at the beginning of your batting average. That's pretty crazy.
Sure. In pro ball, for sure.
In pro ball. But for me, in Little League, too. You had the most total bases of 294, most home runs of 23, and most extra base hits of 71. So, yeah.
Good stats.
Hey, listen, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't, a little proud of it. But, yeah, I mean, never chasing records or anything like that. Just wanted to just play well and be a good teammate and do as good as I could.
Yeah.
Well,
yes. It's awesome.
So I think that kind of jumps right into the next one. So after your junior year of college, obviously you decided, I'm good enough to play. And that came into your brain because obviously you have these stats, and that's when the scouts start coming.
Sure.
So you said you kind of put your training into extra gear at that point in time.
Yeah.
What was you're sitting there and you're like, okay, they keep coming. This guy's from this team. This guy's from this team. Now I need to do this. So what was that like for you? What was the extra stuff you were doing?
Yeah. I started hitting the weight room harder. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say my best friend in college, Bobby Revercombe, who's still a really good friend to this day. He was 2 years older than me. He had a dream to play pro ball. And in fact, he got to go down and play independent league in Texas for a little bit. So he got to live his dream a little. But he was my best friend. He came from a upbringing. His dad was a boxer, work ethic, train till you're blue in the face.
Oh yeah, boxers are tough.
So he and I went to a couple open tryout camps after my sophomore year, after his senior year, and because he drugged me along to that, I'm like, what are we doing, Bobby? We're not playing pro ball here. We go to Messiah College, but because I went to those camps and did really well, that's when I think the Red Scout for sure. He said he knew who I was before that, but after that, I got to talk to him, make a relationship with him, and then he started coming to my games. But anyway, so Bobby is the reason I was in such good shape in the first place. Was fast, and my speed is what got me drafted. I was really, really fast. Besides, I know 405 sounds great, but at Messiah College, guys aren't throwing 95 miles per hour like they're going to face in pro ball.
Yeah.
So that scouts take that with a grain of salt. He might be able to hit, but
can he hit the big
yeah, sure. So he can hit a guy throwing 85, but can he hit a guy throwing 95 with a nasty slider?
Right.
So anyway, yes, I started running more. I started lifting more. I started having my coach come hit me fly balls more, working on my outfielding. So just everything that I was doing before, I just ramped it up even more because I'm like, there's a chance I can get drafted, and when I do, I want to, like I said, I want to go in there and show them I can play.
Which is really cool, because a lot of people don't step it up.
Well,
they
sure.
just don't.
Sure.
Right. So speaking of draft day, do you remember what was going on whenever you finally heard your name?
Everything.
Precisely.
Vividly.
Can you tell us the story about draft day?
Yeah, so my sister was graduating from high school that day. So my mom, my dad, I think my brother and sister were at the high school for her graduation. The draft was going on, and so my girlfriend at the time, now my wife Lisa, and my best friend from high school, Andrew Pry, were at my house, and I had been told I was going to go in rounds 8 to 12. Rounds 8 to 12 went flying by. And I thought, well, I'm starting to get real depressed. I went for a walk at one point just to clear my head. Like we had built this up. And people, I was the one talking to these scouts and stuff. So they're just taking me at my word. So now, you said you were going to go rounds 8 to 12. Well, you're obviously not. So then my ego's getting hurt, my pride's hurt. And so anyway, we have 2 computers in my house growing up. And so my best friend and my girlfriend were at the one computer and I had gone out to the other one and I'm watching. So there's nothing glamorous. You're just watching names come up onto the computer screen, like Twins take whoever, whatever. And then so the Reds 17th round comes and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's my name, And then I hear them, my now wife and my best friend, they're like, oh my gosh, you got drafted. So then we're celebrating. And then we went out to the high school after that to tell my parents. And so a funny story about that. So I got drafted on the day my sister graduated high school, and I got called up to the big leagues on the day she graduated from college.
Wow, look at that.
So
timing.
Cool. Yeah, so she says I tried to steal all her thunder.
Why can't you let her have one thing, Chris? This is so
just one thing, Chris.
Right. So, but yes.
Did you hit your first home run when she had her first child the same day?
I don't think so. No, her kids aren't that old. They're not old enough for that to make sense. But,
that's
who knows what was going on that day. Probably something important for her, though.
Yeah. So you get drafted by the Reds, and that's like a historic day for you, obviously. And then you, I guess, head right into the minors at that point?
Yep.
Okay.
A week later, I was on a plane to Florida, and then was there for a week, and then headed to Billings, Montana for what they call rookie ball, which is like a 2.5 month season.
Which Montana's amazing.
Oh, beautiful.
It's I hunt there.
Do some trout fishing out there. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So there's about a 4-year gap, right, between when your name gets called in the draft to when you actually step onto the majors field.
Yep.
So can you tell us about your experience in the minors? I know that you won Minor League Player of the Year in 2009, which is really, really cool. So can you kind of take us through that whole minor league experience?
Sure. The minor leagues aren't very glamorous. In fact, when you go from Messiah College, the minor leagues are a big step up in a lot of ways because you have locker rooms, and we didn't even have locker rooms at Messiah at the field. But a lot of my teammates are coming from major Division I schools, and I don't know if you've been to some of these SEC or seen some of the facilities. They're like better than AAA facilities. So
I believe it.
I'm getting to Cobb Field in Billings, Montana, which is this old, now looking back at this old rickety field, but it's got grandstands, and I'm like, this is amazing. And my buddies are like, this place is a junk hole, like what is this place?
It's worse than Messiah here. Right.
I'm sure if you ask some of those teammates about their journey through the minor leagues, they'd probably say it's worse than I loved every second of it. I loved the bus rides. Sometimes 13-hour bus rides, but we'd play cards, we'd hang out. I just enjoyed every second of it. Now the play, up and down, every day could be your last day. You could get released, especially when you're 17th draft pick who was given $12,000 to sign when guys were getting millions to sign. They don't have a whole lot of stock in you, so you have to perform to stay. And fortunately for me, I never had a really bad season in the minor leagues. Like I think I hit around 290 in that rookie ball year. But I had a lot of fortunate things happen to me that gave me the opportunity to play.
Yeah.
Like I was the fourth or fifth outfielder taken by the Reds when I got drafted, and one of them had to get a liver or kidney transplant, but he ended up playing, but he would have started over me had he not had to get that.
Wow.
So I got a chance to start every day rookie ball, whereas if I'm on the bench and who knows, could have got released right there. So a lot of things happened that I feel like God had planned, and like
I was going to say.
But when I got my chance, I got my opportunity. Fortunately for me, each one of those I took advantage of them. And then once you get a name for yourself, you start showing up on like the prospect lists for the organization. Then, but 2009, you mentioned, that's when I won minor league player of the year for the Reds. I had some really good hitting coaches that year that got me to a good mental point, but also like took care of some of the holes in my swing. And just from the very first series of the year, just was hitting the cover off the ball and got invited to play at the Futures game that year in St. Louis at the All-Star Weekend.
Oh, yeah, that's a cool game.
Which, that's a big deal. Each organization only sends 2 players, one international, one American-born player. So I knew at that point that the Reds, really valued me as a player. And
that's so cool.
That's when I think, up until that point, it was a dream to get to the big leagues, but still felt far off. And then now was like, I remember the day I found out I was going, I was telling my wife, like, hey, we might have a chance here, to get to the big leagues. So
Yeah, what was it like? So obviously I always think about like that time you spend in the minors, and I know it was probably a lot different for you, like you said, for others, because where you came from was a lot different, but it's got to be tough.
Oh,
It's got to be it's not money. There's no money.
You're not getting paid.
Yep.
Yeah, you're not in it for the money at that point. You're in it for the dream of getting there. And I think that, along with the fact that I was just like, I get to tell my grandbabies one day that I played professional ball. Like, you know what I mean? That was cool. So I didn't take it for granted. I went out there every day. But yeah, it wasn't necessarily glamorous in any regard. You know, you'd have a couple fans that thought it was cool that you played for the Dayton Dragons or the Billings Mustangs. But yeah, you weren't doing it for the money at that point. You were doing it for the dream of getting there.
Right.
Eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for dinner, you know. But then when you got to the big leagues, then you were able to really appreciate it. Cause
you're like, well, that was worth it.
You felt like at some points it was over the top how much they catered to you, and they don't let you carry your bags anywhere. And
I'd imagine it probably felt like almost like a second college experience for you because you were there for 4 years.
In the minor leagues?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, in a lot of ways, sure.
Yeah.
You have a roommate at your hotel. You went from college, you'd have 4 guys to a room when you travel, and then you had 2 guys, and then you get to the big leagues, you have your own room.
Yeah.
You went from motel to hotel,
and then you went to like
seasons.
The 4 seasons and Ritz Carltons. Yeah, I mean,
I went from Holiday Inn Express to 4 seasons.
The minor league hotels. I remember pulling up to one hotel. I think it was, I forget where I was playing for the Dayton Dragons, and my coach went in and he's like, the way it looked from the outside, he's like, I got to go check this place out. And he said, hey, boys, we're not staying here.
Really?
It was that
bad?
So we found another one that was a little bit better.
Every room has a cat.
And by the way, guys, if you're enjoying this episode of the Good Hustle Podcast, please go ahead, leave a like, subscribe on the YouTube. And also, we are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts now. So if you want to listen without the video part, you can do that.
Yep. And if you're looking for any real estate needs, whether you're buying, selling, or investing, please contact Zach or myself. Our numbers are below. Back to the podcast. Okay.
Right.
It's your cat for the night. All right.
So yeah, just for overall, like minor leagues were not glamorous at all. That's the moral. Lots of bus trips and not being taken care of, and just a lot of ways it was like worse than college ball for some of these kids.
Wow.
So you go through that, you get your name called.
Yep.
What's it like literally looking down, buttoning up that Reds jersey for the first time?
Oh, again, surreal. Like, pinch yourself. Like, I can't believe this is happening. But at the same time, you gotta remember, like, if you want to perform, you can't act like
You can't act like
you
you're dreaming.
You gotta act like you've been there before, and you're gonna have some confidence and not just be like, well, at least I got here now, you know. But no, definitely like seeing a baseball card of yourself, or like you mentioned before we got on here about seeing yourself on a video game. Like,
oh yeah,
pretty wild.
Yeah.
You know?
And then taking that field for the first time. I mean, obviously you said your first 3 games were in St. Louis. You didn't play. Then you get back to Cincinnati and you take the field.
Yep.
Like just standing on that. Because I can tell you, I played through like teeners and all that stuff. My fondest memories as a child are on the baseball field.
Sure.
And I literally live, 500 yards from the original fields I played on as a child.
Sure.
And just that dirt, the smells, the glove, the ball.
Yep.
Like everybody, come on, John. Like, the ding of the bat. Like, those memories are something that they're my favorite memories of my childhood.
Yeah.
So then you get to go onto the next level and step on that gorgeous field.
Right.
That beautiful dirt. And like, I can't even imagine how it felt to just that first time just running out onto the field.
Yeah. My debut, so I'm batting, I think I hit 7th or 8th in the lineup that night, starting in right field. And I took an 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts, so like not a good debut. But I did make a catch in right field that my wife just found on the internet the other day that kind of like saved the game. We won 3-2.
Wow,
oh, nice.
So at least I had that but I remember standing in right field thinking, I just can't wait to go curl up in my bed because I was like felt like such a failure. You finally get a chance and you're 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts, and again, I can tell my grandkids one day I made it to the major leagues at least. Like I got that as the backup here.
Right.
Fortunately, a couple days later, I got another start and hit a single my first at bat, and then ended up hitting a home run later in the game. So then I went from thinking I'm never going to play in the big leagues to seeing my name go across the ticker on ESPN, like when they give the game recaps, and I'm like, all right, maybe
parentheses 1.
Maybe exactly 1 home run.
Hey, who cares, man?
That's right.
It's on the board, buddy.
Matter, So that was a pretty cool day for sure. Getting my first hit. That was against the Pirates in Pittsburgh with some family, and
which is a great stadium too.
my wife, she'll probably be mad for me saying this, but like her scream in the video of that home run is like, you could just tell how happy she is, and like she knows how relieved I am.
Oh,
right.
But she's screaming at the top of her lungs.
Can you send this to me?
I can try to find it. Yeah,
Send it to me if it's on YouTube.
It is. It is.
That's awesome.
So we're going to go over some major league stats real quick. So 2010, you led MLB in pinch hit home runs, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So hitting 3 home runs in a game against the New York Yankees in one game.
Yep.
Tell me about that day.
Yeah. Again, one of those, like you said about the draft day, I remember a lot about that day.
Yeah.
We had a day-night doubleheader against the Yankees because we had got rained out the day or two before. I didn't get to play in the day. Maybe I pinch hit in the day game, maybe got out, but my swing had been feeling awful. I had started out hot that year and then had was in a little bit of a slump, and I spent probably, I think there was maybe 2.5, 3 hours between games where guys could go back to their house and relax before they had to be back for the night game. But I spent the entire time in the batting cage.
Wow.
By myself. We had this pitching machine called the Iron Mike that would just go around in circles and then fling balls at you. And I pretty much swung until I couldn't lift my arms anymore. Like, I was just so frustrated. In fact, during that time, one of my best friends, Travis Wood, got traded to the Cubs. And so he came in and said goodbye. Like, hey, I got traded. So I was kind of sad about that. He's, at that time, probably my best friend on the Reds. And so anyway, the night game comes. Right before the game, we go into the batting cage, and we're taking what we call flips. The coach is just standing 10 feet in front of us, flipping underhand behind the screen, and something clicked. I just moved my hands to a different spot, and I just started feeling really good. And then my first at bat, I was leading off that night, and I remember, maybe because I've watched the video probably 100 times or so, but like just to relive that memory. But I had a full count. I fouled off a bunch of pitches, and then he threw an inside cutter, and I pulled my hands in to hit it out of the park. And I'm like, anytime you get to hit your first at bat, whether it's a bunt single or you got to hit that night so you can go home. Like, going home with an 0 for 4 or 0 for 5 is not a great feeling, But you get one hit, it's like, all right, I can sleep tonight. I don't have to stress about it. So hit that home run, and then my mind was just like at ease. At least I thank God I got it, not just to hit a home run, RBI,
right.
So yeah, then I was just at a very good mindset for the rest of the game, and ended up going 3 for 5 with 3 home runs. But yeah, like live interview on ESPN after the game. You're just gosh. You're talking to the guys in the studio, and you're like, guys are dumping Gatorade on you. Yeah, awesome day. Like
something you'll never forget.
Yeah, like probably my greatest game ever in the major leagues.
I mean, how does it get much better than 3 home runs? That's
maybe hit 4.
Maybe 4. Yeah.
Nobody's ever hit 5, but there's been 4. About 20 guys that hit 4 home runs.
That's true.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I'll definitely never forget that day. Great feeling. But this is how humbling baseball is. So I went from the high of highs. We go to Baltimore for a series, and I had a couple decent games, but then we both go to Tampa Bay. I'm facing, in his prime, David Price, throwing like 97 mile an hour and taking 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, and I'm like back to where I started.
Yep. In a matter of days.
But yeah, back to from the high. Like, I'm never going to get out. I'm going to be a perennial all-star to being all right. Maybe let's just slow down a little bit. We got to grind this out.
Well, what about the game-winning walk-off in the 16th inning? I know you had one against the Nationals, and that was in 2011 or 2016.
This was with the Nats.
With the Nats against the Twins.
Yep.
Were you tired? Was everybody tired?
Yes. I didn't start that game. I came in as a replacement. So that's a cool story too, because Bryce Harper pinch hit home run to tie the game in the 9th inning.
Wow.
For our right fielder, I believe. So, but Bryce, it was his day off, so they didn't want to put him in the game, knowing that we're going to extra innings. So I go into right field, end up getting 4 bats that day. Had a infield single, I think, but then hit the walk-off. But yes.
So you replaced Bryce that day?
Well, he pinch hit for the guy that I replaced. So yeah,
Okay.
kind of. But there's a baseball card, a Topps Now baseball card, where it's Bryce and me. Harper homers to tie the game, and Heisey walks it off.
Because I love those Topps Now cards.
Yeah, we have to get that.
Yeah, you got to look that one up. I have it at home.
I will find it on the eBays. I collect sports cards. Like, I'm a huge.
So cool.
I may have bought.
Yeah.
Bought stuff yesterday.
Hey, no judgment. I grew up collecting, and I still like baseball. Nothing like opening a new pack of baseball cards.
Yeah. So while we're on the topic of teammates and stuff, before we were rolling, we started talking about Scott Rowland.
Yep.
And it's kind of surreal to me because you played with Scott Rowland, which is really, really cool. And my dad, one of his jokes as we would get in the car, my dad was a huge Scott Rowland fan growing up, was, hey, guys, we got to get Scott Rowland. We got to get back in the car. We got to get rolling, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So can you tell us about not just Scott, but like some of your favorite teammates over the years and guys you played with?
Yeah, so Scott was an amazing teammate. My very first major league camp was the same year I got called up to the big leagues at my locker because he was number 27 and I was 28, was right next to Scott Rowland. So I'm already like, just my very first time ever being with the major league team as part of the major league team, I'm sitting next to Scott Rowland during a team meeting. I'm like, what the heck? You know, I was a Phillies fan growing up, so like I got a Scott Rowland home run ball at Veterans Stadium one time. So I told him that story. He's like, I never hit a home run off that guy. And I'm like, well, you did. So we found the video. And he's like, daggone, I did, you know?
That is amazing.
That's crazy.
So, but yeah, great teammate. Ian took care of us, took us out to dinner, bought us a nice new suit because we had to dress up in suits and I didn't have any nice clothing. So great teammate. Was actually up in Cooperstown for his Hall of Fame induction last summer and got to spend some time with him there. So that was pretty awesome. A couple of former teammates and I went up there. And but yeah, I've had some awesome teammates and teammates that maybe weren't as awesome that people, but I won't, we don't need to mention them.
No, of course not.
But
sure.
That's just people though, right? No matter what you do, there's people in every profession that are awesome and there's people that maybe need some work,
Yeah. I believe that.
I just heard it's not gossip if you don't mention names, so we're good.
I agree. I actually agree with that. Yeah,
100%.
I mean, you're allowed to talk about people, but don't individualize and single them out. And
yeah. Right. Yeah. So can you tell us? You mentioned David Price. Can you tell us some of the hardest pitchers you've ever faced over the years?
Yep. I always say Mariano Rivera. So the night before I hit the 3-run home run, I pinch hit against Mariano. And I got an RBI. Now,
did you really?
That's
it was not as good as it sounds. I was first and third, and I hit a chopper back to him, broke my bat.
Oh, okay.
So he tried to turn two. I beat it out at first base. So he's getting an RBI because the guy from third scored. But that was pretty awesome to get to face him.
Yes.
Clayton Kershaw, I faced a lot.
Ooh.
Madison Bumgarner, I faced a lot.
Ooh, yeah.
All the hard lefties. They would give our left-handed outfielder Jay Bruce a day off, so they let me face all the nasty left-handed pitchers.
Wow. Jay Bruce was solid back in the day, too.
Yeah. So he was a great teammate, too. He was one of the guys that went up to Cooperstown last summer with us.
That's pretty cool.
So, yeah, just...
You ever faced Pedro, or was that before you?
That was before me.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a lot of the old-time great. I do have a home run off of Billy Wagner, which
do you
was
really?
one of the greatest
that
closers
is
ever.
I love
cool.
Billy Wagner.
Trevor Hoffman, I got a couple hits off of him.
Yes.
Faced Andy Pettit in New York.
I love this.
Got a couple base hits off of Andy Pettit.
Just hearing these names is like, I can't even fathom.
Well, then think about, like, that was me when I was, growing up as a baseball fan, and then I'm getting to face these, like,
Can you tell me, like, I just want to know what your gut is telling you as you're like, that's Mariano Rivera right there.
Yep.
I'm about to walk into the batter's box and try and swing at a ball that Mariano Rivera.
So, fortunately, like, part of being able to play at that level is being able to, right. So, yes, you're facing Mariano Rivera, but, like, what do I have to do against Mariano to try to succeed right now? So, like, having a narrow focus.
You have to be mentally prepared for that.
See the ball, hit the ball, not worried about the situation. And it's also why I wasn't as good as some of my teammates. They were able to really shrink the situation and just pretend like they're in their backyard with their son. That's being able to have that kind of relaxation and confidence, But that's what separates a lot of the greats from the not as greats.
I had a couple questions about. So I saw a stat the other day, which I've heard this before. So 80% of professional athletes go broke within 3 years.
Yep,
they do. Not taught how to properly do things. And I actually saw a stat where I think it was Shannon Sharp. His rookie year, he bought a $285,000 car. He was making $385,000. Like, that's tough. And it's nothing against Shannon Sharp.
Sure,
it's just how
he didn't know any better.
No, and I grew up poor. Not poor, but I grew up with not a lot, and I have trouble spending now because I do okay. So I have issues with that. But then you got, like, I'm a diehard Vikings fan, so there's a running back from the Vikings recently who is still paying off a 30th birthday party, who's broke.
Right.
I saw another athlete who owes MGM Casino like $50 million or something like. Oh no, that was Bruno Mars, but still, still somebody famous.
Sure.
So like how did you mentally prepare, or did you have people that were going to help you say, listen, Chris, this doesn't go past your 30s,
right?
Like much into your 30s,
right.
It doesn't go beyond that,
right?
How are you going to prepare for the next parts of your life?
Sure. Well, the MLB Players Association, I think, did a good job. They come in every year and remind you that your career is not going to be that long. You're going to be a former player a lot longer than you're going to be a current player. And so I think a lot of it comes down to what you were taught about money, what you had, what your perspective is. Like I had teammates who had the attitude of, I didn't come from any money. I'm making money now, but I'm going to spend it, and I can always go back and like that's what I had already mentally prepared for, was to not have money, not have nice things. So I'm going to live it up while I can, but I know like I'll be happy because that's what I was going to be anyway. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Money's obviously the root of all evil. So like the way you view money, I think, is very important.
Extremely.
And my upbringing in the church and being taught to be a good steward of your money and make sure that you're being generous, but also take care of your family. And I firmly believe we don't need money to be happy. We need our basic needs taken care of, and then if we're doing a good job of being generous with our money, it's a great thing to have money. But also, when you get a lot of money, I've seen a lot of people say, "Well, I earned this money. It's me. I want to do what I want with the money," without the perspective that I was raised in to, be generous and be a good steward of your money. I can see why these guys do what they do and they go broke, even though they make millions and millions of dollars, because. Well, for one, they take a lot of pride, and they get a lot of their sense of self from their money. And people like them more because they have money and want to get stuff from them. So then, what do? They think they're being generous, but they're being too generous, and they're paying for their car for their mom, but also the insurance, and they're buying houses and paying. Then all of a sudden, the money's not coming in, and what do they?
Still got taxes.
Right, my mom, she's going to go under, lose her house if I don't try to keep paying.
You got
for
all those payments,
and then all of a sudden, your money just keeps dwindling.
Yeah.
So I don't think a lot of it's bad intentions why these guys go broke.
No, not at all.
You know what I mean?
That's not it. I think it's education.
Right.
100%. It's not being taught properly. And it's the same thing with high schools today, where they're not teaching you about credit scores. They're not teaching you anything like that.
Right.
And it's super important.
Right. Exactly. Then we talked, Zach, about how like what we're learning in school maybe isn't exactly what we need to be a successful business.
Yeah. We were talking before we got on here about how, you go your whole life, if you're a charismatic people person, right, you go your whole life kind of suppressing that because the school system wants you to sit down and shut up and, be someone who takes tests and does those kind of things.
Right.
And then you find out later in life, oh, wait, if I would have been this charismatic people person and I would have equipped myself well during school, I could have been even further than I am in my, entrepreneurial.
Learning how to use those people skills.
Yeah.
Because managing people is why people are the CEO of a company, not necessarily they know the most about the inner workings of the company. They're just good with people and get people to be motivated and get people to stay on task and do the jobs they're supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah,
and
so
networking is very important too.
It is. Of course. Right. It is. And to me, like when I grew up, like I was always taught like treat people fairly, and I was always outgoing and talkative. But the systems today that are in place, but there's some really cool schools, like friends of mine, Matt and Vicky, they're Christians. They have sent their kids, they have 5 kids. They have sent their kids off to a private school not far from here in Bowling Springs. And these kids are in charge of the school.
Yeah.
Like
I've heard
they
of that.
have voting. Like they have to come up with like different rules for their school, and then the students vote on it. Like it's like, my gosh, how
interesting.
How much further ahead are these kids going to be when it comes to just because I know kids today it's really hard, especially because of this.
Yep.
Like 100%. I can't imagine because kids are so in their phones.
Yep.
And I'll walk by a kid like at the golf course and I'll say, "Hey, how you doing?" to maybe a 16-year-old. He doesn't know what to say to me.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, my gosh, like I would have talked your ear off if you would have talked to me when I was 16.
No doubt.
I wouldn't have shut up.
No doubt.
And that makes it even harder on these kids today.
It does. That's a great point. I actually had a conversation with my son on the way to school. I waved to everybody. Okay, like my son's like, even my wife, she's like, "Do you know who that was?" I'm like, "No," but. And so I thought about why it's important that we are friendly to people. And so there was a guy had a leaf blower and was working out front of this retirement home on the way to take my kids to school. And I just waved to him, and he smiled and waved. And I said to my 10-year-old Caden, I said, "Caden, you know why that's important?" I said, "Because one, that's how God we're supposed to love everybody. We're supposed to love people.
Yep.
But we don't know what everybody's going through. And because we're blessed and we know what we know about the hope we have in Jesus, and we're supposed to be friendly to people and let them know they matter. And even if it's just a smile and a wave, maybe he doesn't like people right now. Maybe he thinks people are all out to get him. And just by one person smiling and saying, hey, I could just remind him that, hey, there are good people and humanity isn't as bad as it is. And then it's going to bring people together rather than push people apart.
Yeah, small things are very impactful.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is like literally my favorite word this year.
Yeah.
Just being impactful.
I love it.
Yeah, and you know, the three of us are all Christian guys, and I think like the very easy way to think about it is like, what would Jesus do to a stranger?
Right.
Like how would Jesus treat
Right.
a stranger? And that's all you really have to think about. It's the old cliche, what would Jesus do, right? But I think that is missing in the world a lot.
Well, yeah, because that's not what America is teaching anybody.
No.
We're teaching everybody to go after what you want, make as much money, get as much fame and power as you can, and that's what's important.
Yeah.
But that's not going to bring fulfillment. I know that for a fact.
Right.
After I got done, well, even during playing and after playing, I was depressed. Like I dealt with some depression and anxiety, but seemingly from the outside world, I had millions of dollars. I had a beautiful wife. I have beautiful, healthy kids, a beautiful house, cars that run, and not worried about any financial burden.
Yeah.
But yet I'm dealing with anxiety and depression. You know what I mean? Like
And
it just goes to show you that's not what brings us happiness.
Nope.
You know?
No, and you and I talked about that yesterday on the phone. Like, you know, mental health is so rampant in this country right now. And I suffer from it. Right. Like a year and a half ago, I was so depressed for 6 months. I could not come out of it.
Sure.
And, you know, I'm in recovery and I had a brain injury, yada, yada, yada. But I still have to take care of myself and I still have to have an attitude of gratitude. And if I can live with that attitude of gratitude every day, like wake up in the morning and just think, my gosh, okay. Like Taylor and I bought a house. We got 20 acres. It's unbelievable. We don't like our house. We don't. And it's like frustrating. Yeah. But at the same time, like I woke up this morning and I'm looking at the binos out back and I'm watching all these turkeys full fanned and I'm just like, man, how cool is this?
Right.
Like this is what I get to look at every day.
Right.
But once again, I'm a human. My brain suffers.
Sure.
I suffer.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go through things. And if I'm not taking care of myself and keeping a relationship with God or whatever, it's just not good. And like we talked about that yesterday, and like you helping with these kids.
Oh, yeah.
Like in your life today, like this is your biggest thing.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. People, well, again, this is what I'm trying to teach my sons, and then what I'm trying to continue to work on. One of the things that's gotten me to be the happiest I could say I've been in a very long time is stop worrying about my own problems.
Yeah, exactly.
If I'm taking care of my wife, if I'm taking care of my kids, and then looking to help people throughout my day, I forget, like I could focus on all the things in my property right now. I have an 18-acre property. Things are overgrown. You know, it's mowing season. I gotta make sure my mowers are getting. I gotta make sure my mowers
Thought
are
about
ready.
it this morning.
Right. But I could focus on that, which that's part of why I was depressed. Every little thing, I'm like, oh, that's just something else I have to do. Another job I got to get done. But none of that really, like whether my grass gets mowed or not, does not affect my happiness. No, sure, my kids need to play in their yard, but it'll get mowed. Like, that'll get done. But when that's all I'm focusing on, that's when I'm miserable. But when I woke up today and for some reason this morning, you know, it's Monday morning, I don't have a lot of I don't have any golf set up this week. Anything for myself that I would say is like my outlet or like something fun activity to do. I'm thinking about all the things I have to coach, and I give baseball lessons, and I'm like, wait a second, whoa, we're not doing this. We have plans in place now to be thankful. Like you said, gratitude is so big. Wake up and just remind yourself you're breathing, you're healthy. All the things we have so many things. No matter who you are or where you're from, you have so many things you can be thankful for.
Like being on the Good Hustle.
There you go. There you go. No, I mean this is great.
Plug.
I love it.
Shameless plug.
I'm happy to be doing this and learn about what you guys are doing. I hope this can help people in some capacity to
Absolutely.
make their life better, because that's what we should be trying to do every day.
Well, give us a plug for your business for the sport, for everything that you're doing.
Yeah.
Right now. I'd love to hear a little bit about that,
Sure.
just so we can do a plug for that, because I want that to grow for you, because I know how important it is for you.
Yeah. So Heisey Sports Training, I started giving lessons to kids probably 3.5 years ago, and it wasn't even by choice. It was like my neighbor found out a kid in the neighborhood was looking for somewhere to give lessons, and he's just like, hey, well, our neighbor Chris played professional ball. Maybe he knows a lot about baseball. Maybe he'd give you a lesson. And so he asked if I would do it, and I reluctantly said, yeah, sure. You know, I just I wasn't in the right state of mind to want to do that at the time. And I gave that one, then word started to spread, and so I started getting busier and busier. And but up until recently, like, I just did it because it made, make some money, but also, I felt good after I would leave the lessons, but I wouldn't go into them like, hey, you got 6 different kids coming in tonight. You don't know what they're going through. You can be an encourager and be a influence. And now I go into them like, I'm excited for tonight. I have 3 hours of lessons. It's just changed my perspective. You know what I mean? But yeah, so Heisey Sports Training, we give individual baseball lessons. My brother started working with me a little over a year ago. It's his full-time job right now. So the plug mainly for my brother, John, because I have 3 young kids.
JH.
John
What's
Heisey.
his middle name?
Jonathan Paul Heisey.
JPH.
No way.
Yeah,
I swear, John Patrick Henry.
There you go.
That's right.
He wasn't born in February, was he?
December.
No. Whatever.
So close.
It was close. But anyway, so yes, we give baseball lessons and love training kids and helping them with their baseball swing. We also offer basketball and speed and agility lessons.
Nice.
HeiseySportsTraining.com is how you can go and look for time to sign up. My phone number is on there too, so if you can't find any slots, send me a text message or a phone call, and we'll try to get you.
I'll put it all in the description.
Yeah, we'll get one of these 2 guys.
We'll do it. Yeah, we got it.
That's above
But
me.
if you can't get in with me, get in with my brother, because he's great with people. I mean, our dad one of the reasons we're as outgoing as our dad model. He was a salesman. He treated everybody with kindness and respect and love, and like they mattered. And so not only do we know Jesus, but we had an example of that with our dad. Like,
that's awesome.
He treated people so.
Yeah, that is such a huge blessing too.
Oh yeah,
Because his dad's a pastor.
Yeah,
he's a youth pastor.
We were talking before. Both of our dads are our heroes.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So now that you have a kid and you have
Never had kids.
That's all right.
But listen, that's why I know God gave me a purpose to actually coach kids sports.
Right.
My dad was a great coach.
So you're using that.
Yep. I remember having bad coaches, and I remember having good coaches.
Yep.
And the good coaches were so influential in my life. That's all I wanted to do. When it came to sobriety for me, service keeps you sober. That's how I ended up getting into coaching. But like I said, I just retired after 13 years. Saturday was just my last game, and I'm okay. I'm going to start reffing.
Right.
And
nice.
And to me, it's just as fun. Yeah.
That's awesome what you said, though. Like, service keeps you sober. Service keeps you happy. Like,
100%.
We have to get out of ourselves and stop
100%.
worrying about how we can make ourselves happy. It's so counter our actual nature, but also counter our world right now. Mm-hmm. It's like, I can't tell you how fulfilled you'll feel and how much energy you have when you serve all day long.
Yeah.
If you do it with the right mindset and with a connection with God, that's how we'll be sustained. And the reason people struggle with addiction is because we're trying to fill a void. That we could be getting by getting out of ourselves, but the further down that hole you go, the more selfish you get, the more like I instead of, hey, let me go see who I can help today.
And I still struggle with filling those holes, whether it's shopping, shoes.
Sure.
I still have tons of addiction issues. All right, one last question. All right, because we know kind of where your hustle comes from. We know all that. We kind of see where you're going and where people can follow you and connect with you, which is really, really important. But this is the most important question of the day. Okay. What's the greatest baseball movie of all time?
All right, well.
Because there's only one answer.
Uh-oh. Now I'm going to try. Now, see, here's the human.
There's 2 on top of my
human
head
relation thing. Like I'm trying to. Should I say what I want or try to?
No, say what you
should
want.
say what you want.
No, there's so many good baseball.
There
movies.
is.
I have my favorite.
I'm partial to The Sandlot.
Yep, Sandlot's good.
Yep.
But I also love Rookie of the Year. I also love Angels in the Outfield. But then you get into like Field of Dreams.
That's my favorite. I think that's the greatest baseball
Field
movie
of
of all
Dreams.
time.
Okay.
What a great. I've been to the.
You guys didn't mention mine yet. I'll tell you at the end.
I got to hold on. I want to guess it.
Okay.
I got to go to the actual Field of Dreams farm in Iowa.
Yeah.
When I was playing for the Dayton Dragons, our coach took us to the Field of Dreams place. Pretty awesome.
I actually just saw it in the movie theater last week for a 35-year anniversary.
Oh, yeah?
Also, if you haven't seen The Hill, this is a new movie on Netflix. It's with Dennis Quaid. It's a true story.
Oh.
Your kids will absolutely love this movie. And it's that Disney type. Yeah. But what's yours?
Hold on.
All right, guess it. Yeah. I'm a nerd.
Major League.
Nope.
Oh, bench warmers.
No, I do love Bench Warmers.
So do I.
That's probably my number 2.
Bad News Bears.
No.
Oh, what a great movie.
I can't believe you haven't got it yet.
What is it?
No.
Okay. I want Chris to guess it so bad.
I know. I got to know it.
It's nerdy.
Nerdy.
Yes. All the
like Summer Catch.
Basketball?
No. No, it's like a numbers based. based. I'll give.
Moneyball.
Moneyball. Yes, I'm a Moneyball guy.
That's a good movie.
I was never.
I just watched it yesterday.
As
Moneyball?
Yeah.
No way.
I was never like the most athletic kid. So what I got into later in life was fantasy football. And so as a fantasy guy, we love Moneyball because you get into all the analytics and the numbers and all that kind of stuff.
We actually did talk about that. And I peaked at age 12, so I was pretty good at 12. I had like 19 home runs that year.
Nice.
Yeah. And like a bunch of, there was no errors on any of those plays. They were legit home runs.
That's awesome. Now that I coach, coaches look at me and say, is that a hit or an error? I'm like, they're young enough yet. Give them a hit.
Yeah, exactly.
The other team's not going to look at their fielding percentage until they get older.
Yeah, exactly.
You're 10, just give them a hit.
Exactly.
All right, so we'll close it up here. So the Good Hustle podcast, this podcast is all about becoming the best version of yourself, okay? So becoming the best John, you can be the best Zach, you can be the best Chris, you can be the best Nate behind the camera, you can be.
Dog.
Shout out Nate. And, so not all of us can control everything about our body, about how athletic we are, how gifted we are from God, right? There's a lot of people who would love to be as gifted at sports, but they're just not, right?
Yes.
But one thing I always say that we can control is our mindset, our perspective, and, of course, our relationship with God, right? So what do you think about your mindset has allowed you to be as great as you became in baseball and now as a father and a trainer and those things?
That's a great question. And I think so put it this way, I wish I knew now what I knew when I was playing. I think I would have been so like way, way better.
Sure.
I don't think I was prepared mentally. I don't think some of the depression stuff I was dealing with was due to losing my father at an early age. But I think the key to all that right now is, for me, it's when I wake up in the morning, filling my mind with positivity. So I've been doing a lot of reading. I was listening to a book called The Power of Positive Leadership on the way here by an author, John Gordon. Mm-hmm. He has a book called The Energy Bus, which I've read a few times now. I can't read. I listen.
I do Audible.
Audible's
Reading
great.
is laborious and painful to me, but I found that I can listen and retain. And so that's been awesome. Like, and this is within the last year I've started listening to books. I've listened to more books than I've ever read in my life in the last 6 to 8 months. But filling your mind with positive things. So for me, it's gratitude. Like you said, John Gordon says go on a gratitude walk in the morning. I haven't gone actually on a walk, but I will go through a list of things that I'm thankful for in the morning, just to fill my mind with that. And then set a goal for the day. And your goal can't be how much money you're going to make today. It can't be the list of things you got to do, which that'll get done. But you have to have what's my purpose in life, right? And my purpose in life, if I'm living out what the Bible tells me to live out, is to be a representation and give glory to God with my life. So when I go out through my day with that mindset, that's when all the business things are going to happen. That's when, because I'm treating people right, you know what I mean? And I'm not looking for that. That's good things happen to good people because people are what matters to every one of us. So God and people, the greatest commandments, love God, love others.
Exactly.
When we're living that out, you will be fulfilled.
Yep.
Chasing greed, chasing power, chasing money, chasing fame, it's empty. It's nothing there. So that's what's most important to me right now. That's what's putting me in my best mindset to live for that. But it fills me up. That's when I feel the best. It's when I'm not looking to glorify myself, but I'm looking to glorify God by serving other people.
And if you're whole, that's when you can really be a huge help to people around you and your kids.
That's right. I don't want to say this, but I ran a stop sign on the way here because I was texting. Thank God nobody was coming the other way. But I was in such a good. I was texting all my buddies like encouraging messages for the week. I'm like, wouldn't that have been a way to go? Like,
see, I need more friends like that.
You get T-boned because you were texting your buddy, trying to tell him. But I got to make sure I'm paying attention.
Right.
Well, on that note, pay attention to us.
No texting and driving.
Pay attention to us, the Good Hustle, and we really thank you, Chris. And it's been a great episode. And we're just glad to have you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Where can people follow you, Chris?
My phone number.
Okay.
I don't have any. I don't.
You don't do social media much?
I have an Instagram account because, for the most part, for the baseball training, but we haven't ended up using that at all.
Okay.
So no, I don't. I've never posted anything on social media.
Okay. It's probably better that way. Honestly.
We'll attach some links. We'll get you hooked up. We'll make sure people know where to find you.
But seriously, I mean, you can put my phone number on there. Like, if you need an encouraging word, give me a call. Like, I want to hear from you.
Awesome.
Yeah. You just want to call and say you talked to Chris Heisey because that doesn't make sense why that would that would be cool to me from my perspective. But like, if you want to just say you talk to a Major League Baseball player,
there you go.
Send me a text message or give me a call. Awesome. If I don't answer, leave me a message and I'll try to get back.
Cool. Thank you.
Well, we really appreciate your time, and it was awesome to get to hear your perspective. And every time we interview somebody on here too, I can always see kind of why they got there from their mindset. And I think that's so interesting to be able to see, like, okay, great father, hero, and we go through your life. I just love doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's had similar
the
similar mindsets, not similar paths, but similar mindsets.
Yeah, and you're getting this is a great way for you guys to start your day, because you're talking about me right now. You're not thinking about yourselves.
Yep.
And you're going to automatically be in a better mindset and mood because you haven't focused on all the things like at your property, I hope, while we're doing this whole thing. You know what I mean?
No, I have not. I've thought about the mower when you brought it up. And that made me sick to the stomach because 2 of the tires were low. I got like 7 acres to mow. And then I'm like, well, maybe I'll just hire my buddy Ken because Ken mows locally. So does my dad. And I was like, well, what do I do now? Do I just pay somebody? And then,
I get the same thoughts. And that's when I thank God that I have the resources
100%
to buy a new mower if mine kaputzes, or if I got overwhelmed, I could hire somebody to mow my lawn. Actually, and maybe bless somebody that needs a little extra cash too.
Amen. Amen. That's a big thing for me too, because sometimes it's not necessarily about me not wanting to do it, but I know somebody that might need the job.
Yeah, there you go.
And we work that way, and I think that's the best thing you can do.
And that's how you're going to have a successful business. Yeah. You treat people like they want to be treated, and they'll come to you rather than somebody who may have a little better knowledge of what they're, you know what I mean? But like, that's what Heisey Sports Training. That's how we separate ourselves.
Relationship building.
Yeah, we want those kids to feel like they're amazing when they leave there.
Yeah.
Right? We know what we're talking about, but that's not even that important compared to a little bit of good training and a lot of encouragement and making them feel like
keeps them coming back too.
That's right.
Well, amen. Well, thank you all. We'll see you next time.